Welcome to Off the Grid, a podcast for small business owners who want to leave social media without losing all their clients.
Let's go off the grid. Okay. Let's go off the grid. Okay. I know that you really want to put your phone away. Yeah. Let's go off the grid.
Hello, and welcome to Off the Grid, a podcast about leaving social media without losing all your income. I'm your host, Amelia Ruby, and on this show, I share stories, strategies, and experiments for sharing your work online with radical generosity and energetic sovereignty. And today, I am actually joined by one of the very first people I ever heard talk about radical generosity. If you go back to the very beginning of season 1, maybe like episode 4 of Off the Grid, I actually name check this guest. And I am just so thrilled and excited to have her with me on the show today. Before I tell you who it is and how amazing she is, I want to make a teeny tiny request, which is that I would love if you would text this episode or any other episode of the show that you've enjoyed to a friend today. This podcast has grown pretty much entirely from word of mouth. And so it means the literal world. It means my livelihood to have it shared by and from and with listeners who love to tune in. And I think that if you love to tune in, you probably know someone else who might like to tune in. So I just want to make an honest and open and heartfelt request to please send an episode of Off the Grid to a friend and tell them why you love it and why you think they should tune in. While you are doing that, perhaps you are picking up your phone right now and copying the link to this episode in your preferred podcast app and then opening iMessage or WhatsApp or Signal or however you reach out to your friends and sending it to them. Maybe you're doing that. I love you if you are. While you're doing that, let me tell you all about today's guest. Sarah Faith Gottesdiener is an artist, designer, writer, teacher, and facilitator who runs the Moon Studio, a creative resource center for spirituality, growth, and intuition development. She is the creator of the very popular Mini Moons planners and the author of the Moon Book, Lunar Magic to Change Your Life. That book has been translated into Japanese and French, and it also has influenced her podcast, which is called Moonbeaming, and which myself and my studio Softer Sounds support with production. I am just so thrilled to be bringing you this conversation where Sarah and I nerd out about online business. We talk about Instagram, email marketing, being inspired by the card of the year, which is the Hermit, to do a lot more business behind the scenes. And then at the very end of the episode, Sarah also shares something super kind about our work together that you will have to tune in to the whole episode to hear. Thank you so much for being here and tuning into this episode of Off the Grid. And thank you in advance for sending this episode or another fave to a friend today. For now, let's dive into my conversation with Sarah Faith Gottesdiener. Hi, Sarah. Welcome to Off the Grid.
Hi, Amelia. It's so amazing to be here.
I am so excited to talk to you today about the business that you've built, the magic that has helped you grow it, and your marketing strategy, which I feel like a lot of witches out there are like, the marketing strategy might be the boring part of the business. But for me, I'm like, this is where the magic is happening. It's where we cultivate resonance. It's where we bring the work to the people. And as someone who's been paying attention to your business for years, I found you first on Instagram. And that was my entryway into your world. So I'd love to begin by hearing a little bit about your relationship to social media. Like, when did you join Instagram or other social media platforms? What brought you there? And I'm so curious, was your business first or was your Instagram first? What was sort of the order of operations?
I started my business very, very organically and not really without any kind of plan. I come from a queer punk background. I've made zines, I've been in noise bands, and I just love to make. And if I don't make things, I feel really depressed. honestly. Like there's like a clear connection between me creating things and my mental health and my emotional health and all of that. So I was always making things and then kind of becoming a business looking back during that time where the internet helped us get our art out there. So I went from making zines to making like posters and started selling them, and people started buying them, and I started selling them in stores. Now that I'm looking back, I'm a little nostalgic of this boom of incredible, mostly women owned, like queer stores that supported indie artists. One of those was Other Wild. One of those was Likely General. Shout out to both of them, and many other stores that were independent that would carry my work. And that's really how I began working for myself. It really, truly was due to the power of other aligned small businesses who would open their doors to me. And I look back and I'm like, wow, this is what we need more of now. Like we need easy to access spaces with like accessible, affordable offerings, so people can gather and people can connect and all of that. So that's where I began. So I really began in the IRL world. I really became tactile, silk screening and all of that. I had like an Etsy store. I had a client the other day say, I was with you since the Etsy days. I was like, oh my God. It's so cringy when you run, like, it's so cringy to look back and like be like, oh my God, I was on Etsy. Not that there's anything wrong with Etsy, but I think about how I've grown from there and how I started. And I think if you can't look back and be a little bit embarrassed about what you were doing 5 years ago or 10 years ago, you're kind of not growing. So, there's that paradox. So, started in real life. My relationship with social media, probably like many other people, was really great up until pretty recently, meaning I didn't feel like it was like ruining my life. Like, I think a lot of people have mental health stuff attached to it, which is so real. I was on MySpace and I would book shows for my band through it. Like, people would ask me out on MySpace when I was single, like it felt like an extension of real life where you would see someone out and about and then they might like slide into your DMs, or you would drive past a venue. Again, I'm thinking of band language, and then find their MySpace and be like, "Hey, like, do you want to book me?" Or because I came from this big punk rock background where I would like mail a tape to a venue, and then you would wait and then you'd go to the library and check the email like to see if they responded and, all of that. So I just started posting photos of my work on Instagram. First, I had a private account. I cannot change my handle because I got like organically blue starred. So it's like my last name is Gottesdiener. And as a joke, I had my handle be Goddess as like a joke. And now it's like my business, which that's a whole other thing. But anyway, still kind of messy, ADHD. Anyway, so then social media actually became really, really great because it helped my business. But more than that, again, I am a bit of a Lisa Simpson in that I really genuinely like people. I'm curious about people. And it was a way to connect with people. Like, it was a way like, oh, you're in Toronto, but you're like a queer witch who, does similar things. Like, let's connect. Oh, you're in the Bay and you're having a workshop. I'm like, it felt very connected and networked. And it felt there was that boom, as everyone knows, where if you were an artist or creator, it just organically helped you. And so fast forward, I'm like everybody else who listens to Off the Grid, hashtag over it. For me, it was like twofold. The first was when I started getting like attacked online and having people just like come for me and having that impact and affect my mental health. And the second was the last couple of years, it became evident that it may not even be helping my business. So why was I even on it? Like, why have things like be so stressful if they're actually not moving the needle? And similar to you, I think, and I'd love to hear from you on this, there is a part of me that cannot mask I can't fake a marketing strat. I can't like get up and dance on a reel. I can't do the trending audio. It feels like bad in my body. Like it just feels not an integrity. And I like don't want to have a reels strategy. Like it makes me kind of feel nauseous. And so I think those things combined with really looking at the metrics, really looking at what worked, made me understand that this year I was going to really test out this theory that I teach in Clear Channels, this newsletter class that I teach, where your newsletter is the most important part of your business. And that is what any business owner, no matter whether they're selling ceramics or coaching, that's what you have to invest in. And it worked like this year, like I was like, okay, I'm going to go all in on the newsletter, all in on segments, all in on I did something else this year that we can talk about where I just invited the people I wanted in the containers, which I'd never done in my life. And I was like, can I do that? Can I like choose who I want to work with? Like, wow. And I did. And it was great. And it's great. And it's still great. And I'm going to continue to do that, which is something I think we can talk about as business owners where like codependency comes in or where the shoulds come in and how to get in more alignment with like who you actually want to be serving and supporting. So, all of that to say, it's been an evolution. I want to, I think, eventually come back to social media or whatever it will be in a year or two in the way that I began, which is just having fun, posting art, enjoying it. But that day is not 2025.
I think what stood out to me just kind of as I was hearing your journey was the arrival on social media as a place to share and connect, the building of relationships there. I mean, I feel like there's so much nostalgia among the off the grid community for the 2014 internet. And the shift from what was a very organic sharing and connection space to how it sort of turned into like a quote unquote business strategy, which I actually don't think it was really all that strategic. It was just that, it started to work for people's businesses. So they did more of it. And then that really changed as the algorithm shifted, as our political climate shifted, as our literal planet's climate shifted. And that's showing up in this online space as well. And it's no longer such a space of like open connection and sharing. It's much more combative, which requires many more boundaries, much more guarding, much more protection, especially for those of us who are, not the norm, I guess I'll say, for all the like weirdos and freaks out here. And I had a conversation with Edgar Fabian Frias, who's also been on your podcast, about the impersonation on Instagram, the shadow banning, the literal banning of accounts by Meta, all of the things that are happening that make the space quite literally unsafe for artists and creators. So all of that said, the business side of the strategy I also love because you have had a newsletter for a long time, which I think then allowed you to focus on that this year. And I am always out here telling everyone to start a newsletter. Whether you want to leave social media or not, just gathering your people in the places that you can speak to them directly is so important.
It's so important. And I started my newsletter in direct response to the algorithm going non-linear on Instagram. That was my first little aha that I don't own this. I can't control this. They are controlling the terms. And I want to let people know like when I'm having a sale or when they can sign up for a workshop. And previously, IG was my like only way of doing that. And so since I think it was 2016, I started my newsletter. And so what I tell folks in Clear Channels, and I'll tell everyone here, the newsletter is a real long game where I don't think I could have gotten off social media with 1,000 newsletter subscribers. Maybe. I also say in Clear Channels, if you have 1,000 newsletter subscribers with like a 40% open rate, you're doing amazing, sweetie. And that's actually like a major milestone because I also think I've been thinking a lot about this too, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, especially since you've gotten off social. I think social has made numbers and our relationship with them very distorted, because if I have 30 people in a room for a workshop, that's a lot of people. I think that there's this insidious dehumanization happening when we think, oh, we're only successful if we have 100,000 followers or 1,000 subscribers. It's like that's actually quite a bit of people that you can galvanize or connect with or influence in a positive way or inspire or ask for help. There was a woman in Clear Channels who started a newsletter and was able to fundraise for her relatives in Palestine through her newsletter and raise like thousands of dollars. And she had, I don't know, maybe about 500 subscribers. And that's a lot. So I think there's like all this weird stuff happening. And if we're not consciously programming ourselves, something else is programming us. And I think that's just one of the ways where I just kept being like, I don't want to do this. I'm a very naturally generous person. And that's kind of how I founded my entire marketing strategy. And it's very clear when I don't want to show up and be generous. And I don't want to show up and be generous on social media right now. And I want to show up and be generous inside my containers, on my Patreon, on my Substack, on the Moon Studios newsletter, in person. And that's a very clear signal to me. When I don't want to be generous, I got to go to therapy, do some journaling, And so it's just very clear. I want to show up as my best self in my business. I believe in energy. I believe that energy is real. I believe that people can feel you when you're like faking it or not being truthful or honest. And so that's also this other indicator for me around like taking a break, not really thinking about it, and focusing my generosity in areas that feel really good.
Yeah, I feel like this is also connected to what you said earlier about not being able or willing to mask in marketing. And my friend Nick also talks about this in terms of like self-coercion. Like, what are we doing if we're coercing ourselves into our marketing? It doesn't work. That's like always a take home for me, that if I am doing something that I genuinely don't want to be doing, it won't work. Or if it does work, it will yield things that I don't actually want.
1000%. The best marketing strategy you can have, other than doing good work, like having your work be at, a quality and caliber that is, again, at a level. And I say this as the typo queen too. So it doesn't have to be perfect, just has to be truthful. Truth and honesty is the most magnetic. I know everyone says this word all the time, so please forgive me, like take a breath, everyone. But truly being authentic, truly listening to your intuition and sharing your truth in creative, unique ways that only you can do is going to be the number one best thing you can do for your business.
And I think that that also relates to what you're saying about social media, because I think that the moment we're in on social media of misinformation and generative AI, truth is impossible to spot there. Even I think those of us with the strongest intuitions and the clearest critical eyes, we're still struggling to figure out what is the truth in this space. And I think in a few years, that will be different. It will sort out differently. Things are going to shift. And that will be when the truth tellers perhaps might reemerge on social media or might be able to go back into that space. But right now, I just see it as a space of, honestly, all lies. Like nothing is real or true on social media in 2025.
You said it. You said it.
Well, some marketing girlies out there are really going to tell me they're telling the truth on social, but
do not get me started. Do not even get me started about that whole marketing girlies and like what's actually going behind the scenes and, all that stuff. Like, come on. No, I can't. I actually can't. So let's not. Let's talk about other things.
Let's go back to your business. So we started with social media and how it was a place to share and connect for you. Then we talked about you starting a newsletter, realizing that with the algorithmic shifts, you needed a more direct relationship to your community. And then I want to hear more about the personal invitations that you've been doing in your marketing this year. So, as I see it from the outside, it seems to me like your marketing landscape is your business newsletter, your Substack newsletter, your podcast. Those are the public things I can see. The social media presence is live, is out there. But what are you doing behind the scenes? What are these other things that I can't see that are happening? I'd love to hear anything you want to share.
Yeah. You got it. I do also want to give a shout out to podcasts. I know we're obviously a little bit, skewing in that we love podcasts, but this is what I will say. I've been doing a lot of marketing audits and, looking at data and going very behind the scenes this year in a very, very granular way. And the podcast is the second largest referral to our website. And I'll be totally honest and transparent. Pinterest is the first. Now, did you hear me say social media? Like, did you hear me say Instagram or Facebook? I'm not on Facebook, but we have like a Facebook page because people tag us or something. But I was like, well, no matter what, I need to invest in Pinterest. If it's true and it's real, which I'm not sure, Pinterest is this funny, fuzzy world to me that I haven't jumped into and I have to so-called like learn it. So yeah, the podcast is the number 2 referral to the website. So it's not IG, it's not that. And in terms of what has made my marketing different this year and like really shifted everything is strategy. Like I really sat down and I was like, hey, you're not being as strategic as you want to be. And part of it, again, to talk about energy and energy leaks, which is major, at least it is to me in a business. If you're a business owner and you're an intuitive, which you are, if something feels off, it is. And it's kind of for you to look at what's going on. What are you doing? What are you not doing? And what I realized was I just wasn't spending enough time talking to the exact people on my list that I wanted to have in my online courses.
Hello, my lovely listener. Amelia here, interrupting this amazing conversation because if you're enjoying this episode, the one you're listening to right now, I think you would really love the Off the Grid Clubhouse. The Clubhouse is a podcast, newsletter, and asynchronous community space hosted on Substack. And in August 2025, I am sharing a very special and totally free series there that I am considering a late summer reset. I'm talking to Social Media Escape Club founder Seth Werkheiser, astrosomatic practitioner Verena Burrell, and leadership coach and transformational advisor Akuya Nyame-Mensah about how we can reconnect with what we love about working online, get a sense of the shifts coming our way from the stars and beyond, and then change the story that we're telling about the rest of the year so that we can step into a different narrative for what 2025 is bringing our businesses and our lives. Those episodes are gorgeous, never before heard invitations to refresh, reset, and reinvigorate your creative energy while you're still luxuriating in some late summer vibes. Normally, the episodes in the Clubhouse are only for paid subscribers, but in August, I am making these totally free because I want to invite you to get a peek behind the paywall and consider if you're able to financially support this work. So please head to the show notes and join us in the Clubhouse on Substack. And if you love our free August episodes, please also consider upgrading to paid for the fall and beyond. I look forward to seeing you on Substack, but for now, let's dive back into this conversation.
Let's talk about self-coercion. So we have all these contracts we're running that are subconscious or unconscious. We usually pick them up from society, from family of origin, from maybe peers. And a lot of them are these ideas around like what we should have how we should be or what we should want. And I realized I got very, very sick and was like teetering on the edge of disability and in terms of not being able to work from long COVID. And I was like teetering on the edge of ending the business because it was untenable in the way that I was running it. And so I really was forced to take a sabbatical and to look at everything going on in the business. And there really is nothing like being at the edge to be like, do I even want to do this? And so after about 6 months of reflection, I realized, yes, I do want to do this, but I need to do this in a different way. I'm getting healthier. I don't want to get sick again. So that was this sort of existential crisis brought on by COVID that changed everything really. And I'm still in the middle of recalibrating. And so that's the other thing I want to say to someone listening here is if you're at the edge of something or you're really feeling like I can't do this anymore, you can get a little more nuanced and let's not like throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? Let's be like, okay, do I love these things about my business? Yes. Do I want to keep these things? Yes. Are there some things I want to change? And the way that I was able to do that is that I operate my business like probably a lot of folks do, where there's sort of separate income streams within the business. So if I take one away, it's not going to floor everyone. I'm not going to have to lay anyone off or, all of that. So I was just sort of doing some recalibration. And as I think the listeners know, this year's a hermit year. I think a lot of people are yearning to come home to themselves again or yearning to have like intimacy with themselves again because the last decade has felt like a lot of whiplash and we're trying to like refind our way. So I took that hermit archetype very, very seriously. And I realized that going back to the scripts, going back to the coercion, somewhere I was running a program that my business, I'm putting all of this in bunny ears, gentle listeners, like my business had to be like much bigger than it was. And it really didn't have to be. Like I'm like, wait, who taught you that? Like, what are you doing this for? And it was this like just weird combination of non questioned sort of beliefs of this like grow, 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 or, chasing the carrot stick or whatever. Also, again, I'm being very honest. This is like internal deep work, which we all need to be doing this year. It's hermit year. Also, conflating a certain level of success with safety or like being able to exhale. Like when I have X amount in the bank, when the way that I look at money is like it's per months of the studio. I'm like, oh, if I have like a year, then whew, And I was like, that is madness. Like, that is absolute madness. It may never come true. You need to take your own advice that you literally teach at the Moon Studio and look for the energy and the sensation of safety and of feeling enough now. Move from that place. And so, what came up was I only want to work with X amount of the community. I have over 5,000 people on the school list, on part of the mailing list, people who've been through the classes and see if that's enough. I mean, I knew it would feel like it was enough because I love my community. I just wasn't sure if the numbers would reflect that. So I took a major, major change and I really only marketed to the people I wanted to have in these larger containers. I'm doing a longer intuition container. I'm doing a lot of marketing classes. We had an incredible Clear Channels in March. We're going to have one last one in September. It's just like one of my favorite things to do. And I loved it and I love it. And I really was like, wait, is this going to work? Like if I just invite literally emailing 500 people out of 5,000 people, is this going to like float? And it did. And we're also playing with kind of this, again, I'm sharing all my secrets that I usually tell in my marketing class, but you asked and you're curious. I'm doing this thing that I think most businesses do. I just never quite put two and two together, where we're doing kind of this outside inside, where like the big marketing list is the outside storefront. We think of it as like, we're not really hard marketing to anyone on that. And then once folks buy from us and are in our ecosystem, we do the insider marketing. They're the only ones that know about certain specials, about like early birds. The other thing we're doing this year, really hardcore, which feels going back to like punk rock roots in a way, is we're focusing a lot on wait lists. And we're focusing a lot on, well, we'll see. This is the last piece we haven't done yet, like ever, which sounds crazy. But again, there's so much to do in business. I run a whole business. I'm not like a marketer. This is like what I do as part of running the whole studio. Affiliates are like top 50 community members who we love, who are repeats. Like, let's give them a kickback. Our whole thing is like, we love you. And we are pretty positive that we would love a couple of your friends. So if you want to invite them in, if you think they would love to take this container with you and have an accountability buddy, please come on in. Let's like reward you for being here. We want you here. So yeah, that is how I changed everything. And literally IG is like an afterthought in my mind. I'm like, oh, should I post about this? Maybe I'll just do it to see if we'll get a couple sales at the very end. So I'll be like marketing and offering for like 6 weeks internally. And then I might throw something up like the week before, being like, hey, because I don't feel like showing up there. So I'm really not. So other than a couple campaigns a year to get folks on the list, I'm calling it feeding the meter. I'm just like, there's no like strategy. I'm not like dancing on a reel. It's just not where my head's at all this year, you know?
I'm really struck by many of the things that you said. So one that's coming up for me is just helping listeners like ground in the timeline and pacing of this, right? So it was 10 years ago, 2015, that Instagram was your only communication, like the only place you spoke to your community or clients. And now it's 2025, and you have all of these like layered and nuanced marketing strategies. And what I love about conversations like this is that we get to nerd out on all of the very cool and interesting marketing experiments you're trying. And also, like you said at the beginning, back in the day, you had an Etsy shop. And I think in the online business and even like spiritual practice space, a lot of people will look at folks they admire and be like, I want to be there. And they want to, quote unquote, timeline collapse the 10 years in between here and there. And I just don't think that's how timeline collapsing works. And so I like to surface or foreground the time it takes to learn these things. And like you said, even for yourself, you didn't know if that strategy of selling to fewer people, like, was it enough people? Did you have enough on that list? Like, it was an experiment and it worked. And I love that it worked. And I also really love a strategy of selling to a small group. So for instance, I have the off the grid space that is all free. And this is where I practice that generosity. And then I have my membership, the interweb. And then for the first 6 months of this year, I did a small group program inside the interweb that nobody knows happened because I only sold it to 120 people who were in there last fall. And that sort of like inside outside, as you called it, I think is how businesses stay sustainable.
Everything has been a secret. Like my studio manager is laughing at me because I'm like, first it was secret portal business. Then we're doing this intuition class. It's secret studies. And I'm saying to them, like, can we have that be a secret? Like, and they're like, okay, we get it. Like, this is your word. But I also think as, again, considerate, thoughtful, generous, sensitive souls running a business in our year 2025, we need to figure out where we can have agency and who we want in the rooms with us. And again, I think I had this script running that I had to invite in everyone, that I couldn't direct who I wanted to work with because I was running a one-to-many service. And I went back, and this is for anyone listening, whether it's this year, which is a 9-year, which is the ending of a cycle, or if you're just kind of at a crossroads or you're feeling burnt out or your business isn't feeling fun anymore, look back at everything you've done and what you enjoyed the most and think about why that was. And for me, it was I really did love the intimacy of those smaller groups where when I started with like 20 or 30 people. I love giving one-on-one psychic readings, but that's not sustainable for me again, or else I have to charge $1 trillion. But I wanted that feeling. Like, and I was like, how do I get that feeling? Oh yeah, I can curate. I can invite only. It's not me being exclusive. It's me choosing how the energy of the entire space for everyone in the space is going to function. And as a result, the groups are smaller. It's because there's a familiarity there, like, people have taken a lot of the courses. It's much more vulnerable, it's much more truthful. People are, like, showing up in different ways. It's super enjoyable for me as a facilitator because I believe we heal in community and in relationship and through vulnerability and transparency. So, there's that, and I was like, "Oh, okay, I don't know if it will be sustainable long term," and that's why I'm gonna kinda have to, and again, I'm questioning. I'm like, "Do I have to?" I'm hearing myself. I'm going to try to sort of pivot and spend a little more time on that outside marketing for a while just to kind of see and, again, just see what happens. But I also think that we can get locked into comfortability. I think taking risks can only happen if we have the capacity. And for a couple years when I was so sick, and I was just trying to, make sure the business didn't go under, I didn't have the capacity. And that's the other thing, I just want to be clear is like everyone's in a different space. For you, it might look like, for someone else, that might look like taking a part-time job so you can just kind of breathe, or something of that nature. But I finally had the capacity to be like, okay, I can pivot or I can figure this out if this doesn't work out. And I've run so many different versions of the business. I've done so many different things that I just trust myself inherently. I've supported myself, for so long. I was like, okay, I can always go back to dog walking or one-on-one readings and like I can always support myself. That's like a major spiritual that's one of my spiritual kind of journeys in this life is like learning how to support myself, learning how to have my own back. And that comes up energetically and relationally, but it absolutely like money was the number one thing. It was like, can I support myself? Am I worth it? Like, am I this enough? And now it's moved to no matter what, I'll be okay. No matter what, I can support myself. And a lot of that for me comes through taking risks, experimenting, proving myself wrong. I'm a Taurus rising. I'm stubborn as fuck, Like, I'm like, my first answer usually is no, or like, it won't happen because I'm also a trauma survivor and I fucking don't trust things. So I've had to like work through that in my business, in my life. And the only way out is like through doing all these different experiments and being like, what could happen? Or, okay, I'll be okay no matter what, or we'll figure it out no matter what.
I talk to a lot of people who, when they come into business, they want like the one template or like the one blueprint that's going to make their business work forever. Like their business is a machine that they can just like flip an on switch and it will provide consistent results for all of time. And I really try to instill on this show and in every conversation I have that A, that's not how life works. B, that's not how business works. C, that's not how magic works. Like there's nothing alive about that idea. It is literally dead on arrival if that's what we're trying to do. And I think that every business owner I know who enjoys their business and has found success in it has learned to, or inherently does, embrace experimentation, process failure, move forward even when it's murky.
A failure? Like, I'm like, all I have done is fail. Essentially, everything is a failure. Like, all I have done is fail. I just continuously biff it over and over. I'm continuously learning things. I learn things the hardest way. And if I can move forward and like be okay with the discomfort, to your point about the template thing, I really actually need to speak to this too, because that's why I think someone listening like took a marketing class with the copy. Like people are like 50 templates for your blah, blah, blah. And you're like, that's not going to work for you. Like you wonder why you feel uninspired. You wonder why your click rate is low. You wonder, well, you sound like everyone else because you bought some weird template that like doesn't apply to you. And so that's what we do in Clear Channels is like, I underscore that it's your clear voice. It's your clear perspective. When intuition, authenticity, and resonance meet strategy, when you have enough data, this is the other thing that we like really underscore. You don't want to be looking at your numbers 5 times a day. You don't want to be like obsessively refreshing to see who opened your newsletter. You don't want to see how many sales your Pinterest ad converted on the first day. You need to have enough strategic data over time to see what worked and why. And in the beginning, like if this is like making your like nervous system get a little crunchy for someone listening, I also tell people because I work with a ton of creatives, artists, sensitives, you need to just be having fun. Hello, whatever happened to play and fun? Again, people can feel it. If you're like making a little joke in your newsletter, you're having a little meme. It's fun. It's a little treat. You're giving people a little treat. You're having fun. You're like cracking yourself up. Like I will make myself laugh. Even on the podcast, I like, because who is this for if I can't make myself laugh a little, right? Like, what? This is the point of fucking life is like, have some fun, be a little erotic, be a little subversive, like show us who you are. So you can do that for long enough. Maybe I usually say like a season, like 3 months of that. And then you look back, you're like, okay, why do I think this newsletter got forwarded? Or why did I get 30 replies to this one and like no replies to the other? And you can start to see a pattern. And then when you work within your own frequency resonance, like your own containers, different channels of, how you're speaking, how you're sharing, you can then begin to kind of plug and play. And then things do get easier to be like, oh, okay, I'm going to do this sequence within my resonant field of sequencing and try it and see what works. And yes, you're constantly just kind of checking in, seeing what worked. The other thing I do is if I really like doing something, but it hasn't yet fit, I try to figure out a way to make it fit. If it's an offering that got maybe low signups, I don't just throw it away the first time. I'm like, I believe in this offering. I think it's going to really help people. I think it's amazing. I think the world needs this. So I'll try to run it a few times with different messaging. I'm always thinking about like, okay, how could I be clearer? How can I help people more? And that's also a really great way to go about your marketing as well.
As you're saying, it's where intuition meets strategy. Often I'll talk about it as where art meets business. And I believe we have to find the truth in the intuition and in the art. And then there is data and information in business that is good information to have, but I don't locate the truth there. Like the truth is in my knowing and intuiting and creating what needs to be created, what I need, what people need, what, again, is true. And then, as you've said, like we can go to the email open rates and see what landed. We can look at the podcast downloads and help that give me more context.
And what better data is there from like directly from your people? And that's the other thing. Ask your people, like, what do you want? Or what did you like? Or, do surveys, like literally hold focus groups, do like exit surveys after you either meet with them or you run a program or something like that. Let your people give you feedback about what they need and what they want so you can better serve them. That's the other aspect of this too. It's like, sorry, sweetie, but the most successful businesses are not about the founders. They're about the people who the founders are serving. And I see so much kind of like self-consciousness and so much like inverse ego, kind of like so much rumination of like the self and what are people going to think or what are my college friends going to think about my new business or whatever. It's like, no, honey, think about who you're serving. Think about the other person on the side of the screen or, the email list or the people you're going to be working with and talk to them and serve them because businesses also, yes, of course, I'm a creative. So I need to be creative in my business. I need to create just from source or from spirit. I need to be a little bit wild. I need to be a little bit free. And we're providing solutions to people's problems. We're helping people. We're providing a service and we're here to do it well. And we're here to get results. I mean, I'm very serious about that. I'm not here to fuck around. I'm not here to just like craft some beautiful looking program with the right languaging, sell it, and then ghost on my people. That's why like we have people who've been with us for 10 years. It's like I really do care, It's really true. And so I think a lot of people listening feel the same way, but in their marketing, they get in their own way. And they're like, oh, I can't say that. Or like, oh, what will great Aunt Betty think if she reads me drop an F-bomb in my blah? It's like, tell great Aunt Betty you're going to have to remove her from the email list. You really care about her opinion. You don't want her to get upset. You love her. You thank you for the support, but you've got to, unsubscribe her or what. And you can do the same thing on social media. You can like block everyone, be like, I love you. I care about your opinion, and I'm building this thing and I need to feel as like truthful and have the space to play and make mistakes. So like forgive me, but just like let me do me. So those are other kind of behind the scenes, more like emotional, nervous system, energetic self work we often have to do in marketing. But the beautiful thing about it is if you can get out of your own way, that's a really awesome skill to have in life in general.
Business for me is always this dance, or I'm always in this dance between art and business. And it goes back to what we were saying about marketing. It's the inside out, outside in pieces. It's like my art works inside out, my business works outside in. What do the people need? How can I serve them? I've also started talking about business as a site of transaction and transformation. Like business is about transaction. People are paying me in this space. Like if I just wanted to make art, I would just make and release art, but also I need to make money. That's a part of a business. And I don't want my work to be transactional. Like I am deeply obsessed and in love with my clients and their problems. And I think that's what brings that magic, that resonance. And it's, again, all of those blocks that may come up for anyone in relationship, in falling in love and being in love, like those can happen in your business too. It's another site of that healing that has to happen. And then when you like pour all the money wounds on top of that relational struggle, it's a lot. And it's also, for me, it's been like one of the most transformative sites of healing in my life.
I'm like, hi, you don't run a business? How are you transforming? Like, what's going on? Like, are you just in like crazy amounts of therapy or doing, like improv? Like, what's happening? Yeah, no, I mean, it was literally everything. It's money, it's worth, it's pacing, it's all of the unconscious scripts we were talking about, that like self-coercion, codependence is huge. All of these different layers of relational dynamics, self-dynamics, worth, context, politics, like all the different intersections, creativity, life force, eroticism, transformation, connection, clearing, I mean, cycles, seasons, it's all there, truly.
Sarah, what I've heard in this conversation is that your business has been a place of play and experimentation for well over a decade, that you have committed to it and allowed it to evolve in these beautiful ways. And that this year you stepped back from social media and you made even more money than in previous years when you were committed to your Instagram quote unquote strategy. So I'm so happy to learn all of this and to have had this time to sort of nerd out on marketing and magic with you. And you've mentioned your class Clear Channels a few times. So could you just tell folks a little more about what that is and where they can sign up if they'd like to join you?
Yeah, it's happening the first weekend in September. I believe it's the 5th and the 6th. We do a weekend intensive that will get you up and running with the seed of your newsletter. And then we do a whole challenge the month of September, which is bi-weekly accountability, working dates, coaching calls, and we have additional workshops like a Substack workshop. We're having this amazing workshop with Jacqueline Susskind, the poet, about like unblocking your voice and like speaking the truth. And so it's really meant to work simultaneously on your channel, like your literal I'm an energy worker, so we do a lot of energetic work, but also your creativity and your voice. So by the end of our time together, you'll either have revamped your newsletter if you had one that has been dormant, or you will have created a new newsletter And fingers crossed, if you stick with it and you commit and you use the protocols and the ideas that I share and the structures, you'll be publishing a newsletter by October, which is awesome. Like, it's a great way to close out the year. It's a great way to express yourself. It's a great way to expand your business. And it's a great way to share your voice with the world.
Beautiful. Well, listeners, head to the show notes, get the link to join Clear Channels. I personally know a lot of people who've gone through the previous renditions and loved it, and their newsletters transformed, I can say, on the receiving end. They really radically transformed for the better, more magical, more resonant after taking this course with Sarah. And Sarah, thank you so much for everything you shared today. I would love to have you back to talk about how you clear your energetic channels, how you think even more about marketing channels after this year, and so many things that I would love to explore.
Can I say something on air that you promise you won't edit out?
Promise.
I've worked with a lot of people because I've had a business for 10 years. And Amelia is the most professional person I've ever worked with. Amelia meets all the due dates. Amelia does a incredibly high caliber of work. You can tell Amelia cares deeply about the quality of the work, is a pleasure to work with, very communicative. I always know, like, if they're going to go out of town or something well in advance. And so if you want to hire Amelia, promise you will not regret it. So I just wanted to say that, like, again, I've worked with a lot of people and we have this very quiet working relationship because Amelia's a pro. There's like never any, back and forth issues, like all of that. Amelia's amazing. So I just wanted to say that because, give people their flowers, appreciate them. I appreciate the podcast would not be what it is. I owe so much of that to Amelia. My podcast might sound like me, but there's a team, and the core person who makes Moonbeaming possible is Softer Sounds and Amelia. So I just needed to say that because folks need to know, like, it's like you're the real deal. A lot of people present a certain way and then their actual working with them, it's maybe not as pleasurable or in the same, and you're through and through totally congruent, super awesome. I hope to be working with you for a long time to come. So thank you for all your help with building my business.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be behind the scenes on Moonbeaming. And if anyone's listening to this and not subscribed to your show, please go subscribe immediately. It's brilliant. Thank you so much, listeners, for spending this time with us. We'll see you off the grid. Thanks for listening to Off the Grid. Don't forget to grab your free Leaving Social Media toolkit at offthegrid.fun/toolkit. This podcast is a Softer Sounds production. Our music is by Melissa Caitlin Carter of Making Audio Magic, and our logo is by Natelier Studio. I'm your host, Amelia Ruby, and until next time, I'll see you off the grid and on the interweb.
Let's go off the grid. Okay. Let's go off the grid. Okay. I know that you really want to put your phone away. Yeah. Let's